Hi, welcome to the new episode of our journey to explore the life of Alexander the Great in 356 BCE. As one wonder of the world burned, another was born. King Croesus of Lydia built the temple, which was famous for its beauty and grandeur, and had more than 100 marble columns. In 356 BC, the temple was deliberately burnt down by a person named Aristotle so that he could be famous. The arrival of Alexander, son of Philip II and Olympias, was accompanied by auspicious omens and legends, heralding the coming of a figure destined for unparalleled greatness. His kingdom was increasingly secure, his military reforms were taking hold, and his influence was steadily growing. Philip invited artists and intellectuals, adorning it with fine buildings and mosaics. It was here, in the royal palace, that Olympias gave birth to her first and, as it would turn out, only son by Philip. On the very night Alexander was supposedly born, the great temple of Artemis at Ephesus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, burned to the ground. Hegesias of Magnesia, a later historian, quipped that the goddess Artemis was too preoccupied with attending Alexander's birth to save her own temple. While the exact synchronicity is likely a later embellishment designed to link Alexander's birth with world-shaking events, the story became a powerful piece of propaganda. The Macedonian court at Pella was a rough and ready place, filled with hard drinking, battle-scarred warriors, and ambitious nobles. She was fiercely protective, doting on him, but also instilling in him the tales of her heroic Molossian ancestors, especially Achilles. The image of Achilles, the peerless warrior driven by a thirst for glory, became a powerful role model for young Alexander. This child, a product of Philip's pragmatism and Olympias's passion, of Macedonian earthiness and Epirot mysticism, carried within him the seeds of a future that would reshape the ancient world. The legends and omens surrounding his arrival were more than mere folklore. They were the early chapters in a narrative of extraordinary achievement. A narrative that would see this Macedonian prince lead his armies to the ends of the known world, toppling empires and forging a new Hellenistic age. The boy born amidst prophecies of invincibility and the ashes of a world wonder would, in time, strive to live up to, and even surpass, the legends that heralded his arrival. The stage was set, and the lead actor had just made his entrance. This maternal influence, combined with the court's martial atmosphere and the legends of his divine birth, began to shape a personality of extraordinary self-confidence, burning ambition, and a belief that he was destined for greatness. Loyalty was prized, but intrigue and violence were never far beneath the surface. The old tribal disunities were being welded into a powerful, centralized state. The Macedonian army was becoming the most formidable military machine of its time. The kingdom's borders were expanding, its wealth increasing, and its influence spreading throughout the volatile Greek peninsula. Philip, his father, was a towering figure, a brilliant general, a cunning statesman, a man of immense physical energy and appetites, but he was also frequently absent, leading his armies on campaign. The Magi, Persian wise men, were said to have interpreted the temple's destruction as a dire omen for Asia, proclaiming that on that day, doom for the East had been born. It was into this ascendant Macedon, in the royal capital of Pella, that his most famous son, Alexander, was born, likely on the 20th or 21st of July, during the Greek month of Hecatombeon. Olympias, with her deep belief in mysticism and her fierce ambition for her son, undoubtedly played a key role in cultivating and disseminating these narratives. An heir was crucial for the stability of the dynasty. Yet, there might have been a flicker of something else too, perhaps an awareness, even an apprehension, of the potent forces embodied in this child of a dynamic king and a fiercely passionate, mystically inclined queen. Plutarch records that Philip, upon hearing of his son's birth, did not so much rejoice in the birth itself as in the fact that the boy was born in an age when he could secure Aristotle as his tutor. He reportedly wrote a letter to the great philosopher, inviting him to Pella to eventually take charge of Alexander's education, though Aristotle would not actually arrive until Alexander was around 13. This foresight, if true, shows Philip's own intellectual leanings and his high ambitions for his son's upbringing. She had already claimed, or at least hinted, that Alexander was not merely Philip's son, but had a divine paternity, with Zeus himself as his true father. The omens surrounding his birth would have reinforced this belief in her mind and, through her, in the mind of the young Alexander. From the very beginning, Alexander's arrival was draped in legend and portents, signs that many, especially his mother Olympias, would interpret as heralding an extraordinary destiny. This is the story of the birth that set the ancient world on a new course. The year 356 BCE was a momentous one for King Philip II of Macedon. First, his general Parmenion had won a significant victory over the Illyrians, further securing Macedon's troublesome western frontier. Second, Philip's own racehorse had triumphed at the prestigious Olympic Games, a victory that carried immense prestige throughout the Greek world and affirmed the Hellenic identity of the Macedonian royal house. And third, the most personal and perhaps most welcome news, Olympias had given birth to a healthy son. The confluence of these events was seen as highly auspicious, a clear sign of divine favor upon Philip and his lineage. Soothsayers, we are told, declared that a son born amidst such victories would be invincible. Pella itself was transforming under Philip from a relatively modest town into a more fitting capital for a rising power. According to the historian Plutarch, who wrote centuries later, but drew on earlier sources, Philip received news of 3 separate victories on or around the same day that Alexander was born. Another famous legend connected Alexander's birth with a dramatic event far away in Asia Minor. These stories, whether entirely factual or retrospectively enhanced, contributed to the mystique surrounding Alexander from his infancy. Philip's reaction to his son's birth was undoubtedly one of pride and joy. Alexander's early environment was one of stark contrasts. In Philip's absence, Olympias was the dominant influence in Alexander's formative years. The Macedon into which Alexander was born was a kingdom on the move, rapidly transforming under Philip's dynamic leadership. The birth of Alexander in 356 BCE was not just a dynastic event, it was a pivotal moment. In our next episode, we shall explore the initial brought-up of Alexander the Great. Until then, take good care of the environment and people around you, and make it a great day. Stay blessed always.